Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you are definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Coach Roybal, welcome back to the show, and everybody welcome in Coach Philip Roybal, our new co-host here. We will be talking. Happy New Year, everybody. Just wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone. It's been a little while since I've been on. I've uploaded a couple of videos, but the lives, this will be our first one of the new year. So thanks a lot for joining us. Coach, how was the holidays?
You know what? They were fantastic. It was a good time, very relaxed, enjoyed family, and got to go watch a hell of a football game in the Cotton Bowl. And I know we love USC, right? So I was sitting in the middle of the USC Trojans, and I hollered blue wave the whole time, and I drove them. I had them all pissed off at me.
Well, awesome then. That's just, hey man, see, you did the program a solid right there just by doing that. We also had, I know Adela was there and she was hyped up about it as well. So yeah, it was fun times. Thank you, Jen. Happy 2023 to you as well. Yeah, listen, it's I don't think that there's an Oklahoma fan around that could have said that would tell you they weren't excited about the way that went down, particularly the way it went down. You know, for you to have a lead, 15-point lead with what, 3 or 4 minutes left,
yeah,
and then just to gag it up in Lincoln style was
yes.
Man, it was something. It was just something.
Well, that's the first time Tulane has been in a bowl game in 83 years.
Good grief. I had no idea that was the case.
That's 21 years older than more than I'm old.
Man,
that's pretty old.
Well, I'll tell you, and something that, you know, I saw Jen was saying in there no kidding. Jim was saying in there on the in Twitter today that she was enjoying the memes and everything, and I think everybody is. It's just you know, the main thing is kind of what we talked about before, is that there was so much of this, you know, this stupid narrative out there that you can't recruit to Oklahoma, or at least Lincoln couldn't. And then apparently he can't recruit to SC either because he's struggling. Well, now everybody's calling for his defensive coordinator's head, but they're not calling for his at all. And that makes sense that they wouldn't, but he's not, they were calling for his head before he left here. He wasn't trying to get rid. He hired him again. So to me, I would feel like that's one of those deals where you're looking at, thanks, Terry. Happy New Year's to you too. You know, I would feel like he's probably going to get another year there, but which just means good things for anyone who's rooting against USC. You know, because they're not gonna stop anybody there either. And if you look at it as the way that things are going as far as recruiting is concerned, I mean, they're not bringing in big guys, big time recruits to SC, and this is a place that you should not have a problem getting big defensive lineman type guys to go to. This is a power program, a blue blood power program on the West Coast that pretty much owns California, and they're not getting those guys. So they didn't get Mateo Uyunglele. He's right there in town. He went to Oregon instead. You know, I don't know really what else you're supposed to say.
Portal University. That's their new name, Portal University.
And that's just the way that things are with Lincoln. But what are you really going to get? You're going to pick up a few guys here and there, but when it comes to defensive line, those are the guys that nobody wants to let go. So, you know, they're going to play them if they're good enough to be there. They're generally going to probably play them. You know, Alabama's not going to be dumping guys every year. So, you know, anyway. So yeah, I was glad to see you there and enjoying all of that. You know, Hey, thanks a lot, man. That puts us closer. I was just gonna say, folks, thanks so much for all the subscriptions. We are so very, very, very close to monetizing.
Wow.
That puts us at 993. So we are
Woo!
seven away from the magic number there, and so we're excited about that as well. Lots to talk about today on the show. Uh, you know, obviously with the new year kicking off, all the bowl games getting, we're going to kind of recap some of these bowls. Obviously, the one we were just talking about would be one we talk about a bit more. Um, but there's a lot of stuff going on within the transfer portal, as we talked about, and recruiting. So you're seeing a lot more. The last thing that we talked about was Okie Light. They continue to hemorrhage football players and receivers included. So that's been another issue for them today. How in the world you could possibly justify keeping Mike Gundy around any longer is beyond me. But I'm sure that they are going to give it a go in doing that as well. So obviously, thanks again everybody for all of our subscribers, and I've just got to tell you one more time, I've thoroughly enjoyed uh this journey so far, and look forward to what 2023 is going to bring us as a show, uh and then of course for Oklahoma as well. What we're looking at, there are obviously, with the transfer portal going on, there well, there's a lot of movement right now, and there's a lot of moving parts that, you're kind of waiting to kind of see what's going to happen next. There have been some things. We will be welcoming on a member of the Horns Down podcast, Kchris Griffin, here in just a bit as well, to talk about some of the things that he's hearing. Uh, some of the stuff we talked about in the last day or so, it kind of blew my mind. Of course, I've been sick, so I hadn't been keeping up with things as much as I would have wanted to. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but it's something that we've just been uh, trying to keep up with all of it. But it's a lot to talk about. The portal does close, Jen, in the day before the national title game, which that would be Sunday. So you're looking at, they're going to close that thing up. Which means you're really hoping that you're going to find something out soon with Dillon Gabriel. He is looking at, yeah, really. Is that, I hadn't heard this one, and I don't doubt it really.
Wow.
Spencer Sanders wanting to come back and Gundy saying no. Um, yeah, I'm doubting that. Just my thoughts on it, and this is something, maybe he is mad and gonna hold him to that or whatever. But my guess is that if Spencer really wanted to come back, I would think that Gundy would want to allow him to. He is without a doubt the most accomplished quarterback probably in the history of Oklahoma State football. So I can't imagine that he would have turned that down. Maybe though. I mean,
I say this though, from a coach's perspective,
yeah.
sometimes guys burn those bridges. It's hard to take them back, and I know he did a hell of a job, for him over there, but at Okie Light, but sometimes it is difficult. I'm not sure that's really happened, but I think that could be a possibility that coach said, you know what, no, you ain't.
It wouldn't. Here's the thing: as much as it would fairly surprise you, and I get what you're saying. If you once you get to that point where you're like, okay, well, you're gonna walk out on your teammates and
Yes.
not playing in the bowl game and things like that, and then kind of making him look bad. I get that. I could see that. Um, that being said, I mean, you don't really have much coming back. It's not like they've added a great quarterback to come in, and they're young at the position. Even if they were to bring in another somebody who is in there, or who has got experience, and somebody that you think you might be able to count on, it still just seems iffy to me. But that being said, as Jen's even saying right here, he is a high and mighty type of guy. He thinks that he doesn't need anybody. I mean, his attitude towards the portal in general has been, he doesn't care for it.
Yep.
He used it a little bit whenever they started hemorrhaging some of these guys. But as of today, You've got Stephon Boogie Johnson and Bryson Green have both entered the portal as well. So, I mean, right now you're looking at, I mean, the wide receivers that are, running out the door. You've got your starting quarterback gone, the two leading rushers, three of the top six leading receivers on the team gone, second leading tackler, two starting defensive backs, Trace Ford, who is with the Oklahoma Sooners, and then Braylon Presley, who was a freshman that hadn't done a bunch yet, but his older brother was one of the main guys, and you would have figured he was going to be well, they had billed him as like a Tyreek Hill type for the future. So, I mean, if you're going to sit here and tell me that that wasn't something that they needed, that none of these guys were anything that they needed, I'm going to tell you you're full of crap. Because right now, as we talked about, I mean, shoot, Coach, you would you said before, and when we were on the show, I said, man, I look at them as still going to be a middle of the road team in the Big 12. And you said, I don't know if they're going to get there. And I think you're probably right.
No, I don't see them being a middle of the road team if they continue this downslide.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was funny, wasn't it, Jen? Him saying, that he'd be the coach of the Sooners. Had he have gone to Oklahoma, that he would have been the coach of the Sooners. He was afraid to compete with the quarterback of the Sooners at the time when he came through. So give me a break, man. The guy's mediocrity at best. At best, he's mediocrity, man.
Exactly.
So anyway, okay. Now, obviously, lots of portal things going on. Now, the portal does close the day before the national title game. From what I can tell, over the next couple of days and starting today, they are having some visitors in from some of these portal visitor type of guys coming in to check it out. One of them being Walter Rouse, the offensive lineman from Stanford. He would be a graduate transfer, and obviously with their coach resigning this season, that's not surprising that you're going to start seeing some of those guys from Stanford leaving. Rouse has been he's been one of their top offensive linemen for the past couple of seasons. It looks like he's, that would be a big, as far as like having somebody that's going to have some, obviously, experience. He's already pretty good sized guy. And that's one thing they have done very, very well at Stanford is run the football. So that's, something that would be good. And with the fact that obviously what we saw in the bowl game was that if you had a lot of issues for Oklahoma in that, was that you could tell that the offensive line was young, and they gave up 8 sacks. Now, part of that being that Dillon probably held onto the football a bit long some of the time,
right?
But I agree with you on that, Tracy. They would have definitely fired him a long time ago.
He would be a big plus. He's one of the. I think he's one of the better linemen.
Yeah,
definitely one of the better linemen.
Yeah, and then obviously I think that the main place that Oklahoma is looking for the most, what they're looking for the most would be interior defensive line help, anywhere along the defensive line, but particularly on the interior right now. Looks like Devon Sears Jr. from Texas State is in Norman today, I believe, visiting. He definitely had announced Oklahoma as one of his top 3 about a week ago. He has also been offered by USC as well. I don't see that happening. But maybe. You never know.
Hey,
then
what we've talked about, Jason, they're kids, and they're gonna, when you think, hey, there's no way this is gonna happen, it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? He decided to go there, or he's doing this, and but again, we got to remember, they're 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, and they're gonna,
right. And if he feels like he's got a better chance to play there, maybe I could see him maybe doing that. And the chances are he could have a better chance to play there, although it's still thin at Oklahoma as well. So, I mean, you figure, feels like if Oklahoma gave him a look there, or offered him, you would probably figure that they need him. So, hey, who's to say? You're right, man. With kids, you just don't know. You just have no idea what they're going to do. And, You know,
Hell, we
even the
don't have
whole
any idea with our own kids, man.
never, never, and they change their mind every 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Them freaking kids, every 2
Gotta
seconds.
love it. Gotta love it.
Yep. Hey, we're gonna go ahead and welcome in uh, our buddy from the Horns Down podcast, Mr. Kchris Griffin.
Hey,
Chris, what's up, bud? How we doing?
hey, I'm doing great, man. Sorry for the tardiness, but appreciate you guys for having me on, man. Definitely excited about this episode, doing it with you, especially after talking last night.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on, man, too. And you know, we were just kind of getting into some of this, the stuff with the portal and everything coming. You know, obviously having a bunch of guys visiting this week, and they're obviously making a big push for that interior defensive line. Chris, of course, this is my co-host, Coach Philip Roybal. He's a longtime high school coach there in Texas, 6A football, Dallas Skyline. Also coached some college around as well. Chris is a hooper coach, and you know, he's Oklahoma guy through and through, but I love their show, so I was excited to get to work with him a little bit as well. So, you know, Chris,
well, hey, Chris, and you know, you got to know from up front, I'm not an Oklahoma guy. Just I'm a 180. I'm an Irish fan.
Hey, that's fine. As long as you're not a Texas fan, we'll get along. You know, figure it out.
Hey,
yeah, we're gonna
Jason
keep those
always
horns.
accused me of being a Longhorn fan, but that's one of the things he's gotten wrong about me is I'm not. Now, I coached several kids that played there, but you know, so I was a fan during the time my kids were there.
No, I got you.
That's not one of the. He noticed he didn't say that's not the only thing that he didn't say that's the only thing I'm wrong about whenever it came to him. So, but no. So obviously we were just talking a little bit. Devin Sears Jr. being there today. It seems like also one of the ones that I really have. You know, when I've been looking around different places, and it looks like Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest looks like he may be a real option for Oklahoma. And man, you talk about a guy that's a disruptor. That would be probably about as big of a get as you could pick up there through the portal anyway.
Well, that like. And who was the kid out of Texas A&M? I'm not sure if you guys talked about him, the one who just popped in there. Gosh, I forgot his name. He literally just entered the transfer portal maybe a day or two ago.
Okay, so see, I hadn't looked, but let's see. Let me go on. Let me take a look. Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me. Now, obviously,
Anthony Lucas.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he just hit the portal from A&M, and you know, obviously, people are like, "Oh, well, Venables is following him and all the rest of that stuff." So I mean, that you got to bolster this D line. You know, we talked about it, you know, off camera as far as what OU is trying to do. And with that 3-man front, one of the problems that we had, honestly, this year is just the fact that we don't have a consistent pass rush. We have guys out there like Jonah Lilu. I always butcher his last name.
I do too, man.
You know, we have guys like that. We have guys like R. Mason Thomas, where you're saying, okay, I see the consistency, I see the effort.
Right.
We're just not getting home. And then our guys, our starters, like we talked about, hey, one guy can't really shed the tackle, right? Shed the block. And then the other guy is basically getting pushed upstream. And he's that close to being able, but it's like, you know, you got to be able to bend that corner and get home. But we don't have any finishers out there where, you know, coming into the season, I thought a guy that would be able to have a bigger impact was Mark Stripling. I thought Stripling would be able to go out there and kind of be that hybrid freak out there that, you know, BV loves to have close to the line. But things didn't pan out because of injuries and other things. But, you know, I think everybody is in agreement. I saw everybody shaking their head on here. You got to bolster that defensive line some way, and you got to get some help on that edge. And
absolutely,
you know, it's not a bad look to sit there, and it's not a bad thing to say that maybe Ethan Downs should be pushed inside. Maybe a guy like Trace Ford with his knee injuries, maybe he should be pushed inside. Those are guys who could possibly get they could give you what you feel like Jalen Redmond was going to give you this year because you've seen it in the past. A guy that's really kind of a tweener, but really excels inside just because of his technique, his speed, and it just God-given ability, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's what I thought about Ethan. You know, when we talked about that last night, I mean, he just seemed so robotic on the edge, and to where you just didn't see a whole lot of. I mean, his quickness isn't what it could be. And when you look at a guy like, say, PJ Adebawari coming in for next season, that guy's a freak of nature, and he's able to get through and make a play. And it seems to me like he's probably going to be able to do that right off the bat. I would think. And he already has put on a ton of weight, it looks like, just over the last few months, just from the last thing that I've seen from him. So I feel like I'm in agreement with you on that some of these guys you might want to experiment like that, particularly with the fact that you just don't have a ton of depth. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as far as that defensive tackle position is concerned. So I would think that wouldn't be a terrible idea as well. Getting into some of these, let's see. You know what, James? The thing is that Ethan has actually he's actually bumped up to, I think he's around 265 right now. Isn't that what we were talking about last night?
Yeah, so he's around 265.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's one of the things that you probably could, you know, get the right amount of weight on there for him. And the thing is if he's not going to be able to really give you much at the outside, which he hasn't shown us that he has, why wouldn't you give that a shot? Mm-hmm. You know, that's just kind of what my thoughts are. And yeah, maybe. Listen, I think that all my feeling is that all options got to be on the table right now. Yeah. You know, I just feel like all options have to be on the table right now. And I really feel like, you know, some of these guys, you know, that you're bringing in. I mean, if you're bringing in a guy like Balthrop, that kind of going back to some of that, this guy is a game wrecker. You know, he's made some big plays. I mean, from what I was watching in the film, and I've seen a lot of Wake Forest for the last couple of years for some reason or other, but they defensively, I mean, and all they do is win football games. There's just, you know, they get out there and seem to do it on the defensive side. They've got a good quarterback, but I think more than anything, it's been really, they get it done defensively. And so, you know, that's one of the things where I kind of feel like that would be a big move. That being said, you know, some of these guys that you already have there, I mean, you're going to have to do something with it, because obviously we weren't getting things, you know, with him on the outside. You weren't seeing Ethan do a whole lot from there. And I love Ethan to death. I think he's going to be a great player. I just don't see that his quickness is going to allow him to get home at the quarterback. And you got to do it. We have got to find a way to get pressure there, you know. Yeah, and I think Jimmy's right when it comes to that. You know, that he could get to 300 pounds. You could see him doing it. He's a 6'4", 6'5" guy. It's a big dude, man. You know, and when you get him in the weight room with Smitty will get him where he needs to be.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, going back to the A&M kid, the Lucas kid, I you know, and I've watched a little film on him, and I tell you what, he keeps great leverage on the outside. And boy, he's got a wingspan, boys, that is, it goes forever. I mean, he's and he's what, 290 plus.
Yeah, man.
He's another. I think if y'all pick him up, he's going to be a great help to you guys.
What is the talk about that? Is that something that has been, because it seemed like BV hasn't really dipped into the whole A&M scenario a whole lot, because they of fit, I would think, more than anything else. I just don't know that he has been in agreement that they would be a fit for his program coming from that program.
And I'm not sure. That's just a name that's been thrown out there. I think one of the biggest things for Grinch, I mean, not Grinch, excuse me.
I was going to say, don't bring him back.
One of the biggest things for BV, I think, with this portal cycle is just being more aggressive on the defensive side. I think that he, you know, the word out there was that if he could go obviously, I don't think Venables is going anywhere with any regrets, but I do think that if he could go back in last year's cycle as far as the transfer portal, there's a couple of guys that he probably would have pursued them harder than what he did, simply because of just some of the lack. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think what it boils down to, and I think that all Oklahoma fans, let's get away from the 6-7 record and what Lincoln Riley did or whatnot. I think what we need to just come to realization is that, hey, we overestimated the talent that was on this team.
No doubt.
There's talented guys in certain areas of this team, but it's just the fact that, hey, you had to plug and pull this year and just play. And go ahead.
Chris, sorry for interrupting.
No, you go.
I was just going to kind of add to what you were saying. Let's quit being, 6 and 7 game winners and let's move back to where we were. And you hit the nail on the head, is we've got to, or OU's got to shore up the defense. I mean, offense has not been a huge issue ever, honestly, for OU. Right. But the defense has been problematic continually. And Lincoln's done the same thing at USC. Offense, but no defense. I mean, hell, you get your ass beat by Tulane that hadn't been in a bowl game in 83 years. But it's Lincoln ball.
Yeah,
it is.
And so, again, it's the defense. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's defense that has got to be shored up.
Well, Jason said something last night that, I mean, it pretty much, to me, it summarizes everything that we're saying right now, is that this new staff that we have is night and day. It's different as far as attention to detail in practice, as far as scouting reports, the whole 9 yards. It's different. And I mean, there's numerous reports about, this coaching staff not being, I guess, happy with the attention to detail that these players had. I mean, obviously, we can go back to some of the conversations that Danny Stutzman has mentioned that he's had with BV, but just from from a preparation standpoint, it just wasn't cutting the mustard. So that's also something, And Coach, I'm sure that you watched a bunch of OU games, and you can tell us. One thing I said to Jason was like, "Hey, I think that." And especially in some of our zone coverages, we're playing too deep in our clouds. I felt like, okay, so I can see that we're still trying to learn this defense by that. I mean, if you go to the Florida State game, you'll see some guys who are. I mean, we have guys in the area, but they're so deep in their clouds, or they're deep in this spot. Guys are trying to run to their spot, and they're thinking too much instead of just reacting. And I think once we get past that, I think that's whenever this defense is going to look how it's supposed to, when the players are reacting more than they're just thinking, because it's just one of those things when you have really good athletes like Agwebu, you want him just to be an athlete and be able to go out there and just have free range to just wreak havoc. You don't want him to sit there and have to think the game out necessarily for every single play, every single drive.
Well, and I think that was something we talked about early in the season, is that they didn't look like they looked like they were thinking too much and not flying to the football and being athletic enough. You know what I mean?
Well,
go ahead, Coach.
But that goes back to what y'all were talking about a second ago, is if you don't prepare them in practice for those things, they're not going to play fast. They're great athletes and they look like they're playing fast, but they're not playing as fast as their potential they could possibly play, and they can play faster. And like you said, the coverages you're running, you're playing that too deep, and I've noticed in some of their games, I'm thinking, why in the heck are those corners playing so deep when all they got to do is throw the out route? They just need 3 yards, and you're playing 7 yards off. I mean, and it's got to be situational. You got to, it's okay if you're playing 7 yards deep and they're looking at 3rd and 15. But again, situational. But I think it goes back to that coaching piece, paying attention to that detail and putting their kids in the best situation possible to be successful.
Well, and something with, I saw on here, Kirk, thanks for coming on, Kirk, and talking, but, something that it's easy to say this, but when these are not your kids that you recruited and they haven't been playing the same type of defense as what they're not even kind of close to the same thing as what they're used to, it's easy to say that he should have been better at his job. And I don't think that there's any of us that are going to tell you that BV did the best job he's ever done. Is it understandable that some of it? Yes, because of the fact that, first off, these are just not his kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think he tried to make it work, but you can't tell me that, something that I had JP on the show earlier in the season, and he was talking about, how many times, if you've ever coached anything, you can attest to this, how many times you went over and over and over and over the same thing, and they still just didn't do it when it came to be time for the game. You can, at some point, it becomes about the player himself doing your job, so, you can, it's easy to put it all off on the coaches and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong that they don't deserve any kind of, critiquing or even some of the blame for what's going on. But at some point, as a player, I mean, we've all played sports. You still have to go out there and get the job done. The coach can't do it for you.
And that's something that's going to be glossed over for a long time, because the national perspective, the national, lens that everybody is looking through is saying 6-17 couldn't get it done, first year coach. But inside of the OU fandom, I think there's a good number of OU fans who would tell you, hey, one of the hardest parts of the season was just realizing at some point that, man, some of these kids that we were really excited about, they just don't translate to what is happening now, to this new coaching staff, like the scheme and all the rest of it, because like I said, Marcus Stripling, a guy like Clayton Smith, I mean, the list goes on. You thought early in the season, Kendall Dennis was out there. You thought, okay, coming into the season, you thought, okay, well, Josh Eaton will probably be able to, he's played some good ball these past couple of years. Has been inconsistent, but mainly because, just the time on the field, his snap count hasn't been, all that high. But at the same time, it's just hard to, sit there and swallow the fact that, hey, some of these players just didn't translate to the scheme.
And I agree with you. And that's what I was saying, is that a lot of that stuff, and again, Kurt, top 25 class time after time, it's easy to say that, but that is not everybody that was there. I'd love to know which one of these guys we're talking about. There's a lot of people that continue to say that whole narrative that got pushed out there by Lincoln and by, of course, Colin Cowherd about, they left over a 11-2 team. When the truth of it was, most of this team is, particularly on defense, it was gone. They either went to the league or they left. And so it was, I don't see the blue chip guys that were supposedly here and on that defense. I don't know which ones you're talking about. So, you can say what you want. They weren't either developed up until that point. And yeah, you could say it's up to BV to do his job. And develop them, but in one season.
But you just hit the nail on the head right there. In one season is the question you just gave us, and you know what? If you haven't coached, you don't understand that you don't just come in and all of a sudden you're going to get all those guys to understand your whole offensive.
Wave a magic wand and it's there.
It takes time. And I think it was mentioned earlier already by Chris, but you know what? Some of those guys already have those schemes. And I saw somebody posted, well, they ran some 3-3-5. Well, just because you line up in 3-3-5, guys, there's many things you can do out of the 3-3-5 scheme. And you've got to look at your players and again, play that 3-3-5 to every specific player and put them in the right situations. But again, when you're overhauling something, it doesn't happen overnight. So I think we're going to see an improvement this next season. I hope not. but I think you're going to see it. I really do.
I don't think that it could go anywhere but up, could it? And real quick, Mike, I appreciate what you're saying with Kirk, but just so we understand, he is a Division I football player. Kirk Robbins is who we're talking. Him bringing this stuff up, he played Division I football, so he's not just talking out of both sides of his butt. So I get what you're saying, Kirk. I don't necessarily agree with you on a lot of this and stuff, and the truth of it is that. As we said, can you just wave that magic wand and hope that these guys pick it up immediately? No. But that being said, and I know you do have some thick skin, bud, but again, just wanted to say thanks a lot, guys, and I appreciate all this interaction as well, and the opinions that you guys have, because it's important to the show as well. So, and I agree with a lot of you guys on this stuff. And again, I don't think that any of us are sitting here saying that they did the best job that they possibly could have done as a coaching staff, and that includes offensively.
Yeah. No, look, we still got a ways to go, but it's a process, and you trust the process. And the whole thing is that, hey, some teams just catch the right magic and the right juju, and
no doubt.
And that's what happened this year. Okay, so I mean,
if you think about like what we talked about yesterday, when we were off air and saying, hey man, they had 5 games that they lost by less than 1 touchdown, by a touchdown or less.
Yeah.
I mean, just on the law of averages would not allow that same thing to continue going on.
Yeah.
To where you're losing like that week after week after week.
And the thing about it is, it's like, I don't want to go back and forth, but Kirby Smart went 7-5 his first season, and then Sonny Dykes he's had really good years at SMU, but as of late, that hasn't been a consistent thing. So,
right.
Hats off to TCU for making the college football playoffs and getting to the national championship game. But, that's an anomaly in itself. Sitting here talking about a program that's built on 7 national championships to claim more. But it's just one of those things where it is what it is. And it's easy just to kind of nitpick at these things. This coaching staff and everybody, they know. And that's the reason why you saw this recruiting class and you saw the battle that was for Peyton Bowens. Coach, I know that's probably a sore spot for you.
Hey, you're trying to kick my tail already, huh? No, it's not. It's all good.
But what I was going to say, just kind of moving on a little bit, I don't know if you had something else to talk about, but I was going to say, I think Mims is pretty much is kind of the talk of the town right now, seeming that we don't know what the heck he's going to do. Coming into this week, Tuesday, which is today, was supposed to be the day that supposedly he announced whether he was going to stay or he's going to go.
Right. And I hadn't seen the announcement.
Yeah, just hearing all types of reports that, he's already picked out his facility. He's already picked out everything that he possibly wants to do in preparation for the draft already. But then you're also hearing reports that he's going back and forth with that decision because coming back may actually benefit him. So nobody knows.
Right. And when we talked about that last night, I haven't seen a single thing that said that he's an early round guy, which means to me, if we're talking anything after 3rd round, you're not guaranteed anything, And so to me, I don't know if I'm Marvin and you've got an opportunity to come back and be on a better offense than even what it was, which I think that we all know that it wasn't perfect and it needed to be perfect in order for them to win more than what they did this season. But he definitely left some plays on the field that would have probably helped his draft stock tremendously. And I think that as well as he played in the last 2 games between the bowl game and then the Texas Tech game, I would think that, if you could build on that one more season, then you ought to give yourself a better opportunity moving forward. Of course, if he's got Michael Johnson telling him that he needs to be going, then I can understand why you would. I guess that could definitely get in your head, and because we're talking about a world-class speed guy that if you're going to work with him, and he's worked with some of the best receivers in the NFL right now, can't necessarily blame him. But it just seems like a roll of the dice for me that you don't have to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And Coach, I don't know what your thoughts are on that as well. But to me, I haven't seen anything that had him graded higher than 4th round.
Well, and that's exactly right. There's not been anything because he's not in that position to be to go in the early rounds. But again, I think sometimes guys, you got to think about, again, you think about those kids. I don't know about some of these guys and their home lives, what that looks like, and if they get a chance to go and make some money, that kind of leads it to the forefront. And so, there's so many intangibles that go into making those decisions that, I don't know.
And I guess the next thing would be to talk about.
If you cannot put yourself in that position and give yourself another year to be a little bit more successful and move you up into a better position, you should probably take it.
Mm-hmm. And he's a guy. Mims is a guy that draws a lot of comps to a lot of wide receivers in the league. To be honest with you, because I've heard even Chris Godwin, I was like, they think he's that fast. What? But
yeah, I don't know about that.
He's a baller, man. He's a gamer, and he's sneaky fast. He
is fast.
He has first to second round potential, in my opinion. But it's just putting it together. Obviously, there were some drops and all the rest of that. But from his freshman year till now, even though he only had 36 catches last year, how I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that he's a gamer. He's a guy who can go out there and he's going to sneak in on a lot of people. He's a character guy. So he's a guy that you want in your locker room and all of that. He's a guy who's going to do really well in the interviews, not going to have any baggage or anything crazy. Nobody's going to have anything crazy to say about him. He's a guy that could go in there and actually show out. And if kind of the rumors are true, where he would be training and all the rest of that stuff, if he has the right 40 time, people are going to look at that and say, I know what type of potential that he has. I've seen him at his best, and I've seen him against some of the best. He's a one, but he's a guy in the league that you can stick in the slot, or you can stick outside. He's probably a wide receiver 2, maybe probably a 3
right now. Yeah.
And so I think that he's a guy who can not only be serviceable, but also just he's a guy that can sneak in, and I think that at worst, his floor could be like a Michael Gallup.
Well, and Michael's been good. So, I mean, he's a good player. And I'm not saying that that's not where he could get. I agree with you on that. I think that Marvin's really good. Right. I just feel like you and listen, if you're betting on yourself, I mean, you can't necessarily blame him for that. The guy has proven that he's a big-time player in big-time moments. Mm-hmm. I feel like he could absolutely, he's going to stick at some point in the NFL. I don't think that that's necessarily the issue. My feeling is that you get slotted on where you get drafted, and that's what you get paid. So that, you can make it easier on yourself coming back one more year. You're going to get paid if you come to Oklahoma anyway, because of the fact that you're going to come in and you're going to be the number one receiver more than likely. Right.
Yeah. And Coach, I mean, because I think our friend Ty, shout out to Ty from Around the Table Sports. I think he's the way he said it, when we were on their podcast. I think it was him or another guy that does the show with us. But basically, there's no just grades by rounds. Like it's either day 1, day 2, or day 3, and those are the grades that you basically get. I mean,
right? Yeah. Exactly. I still think if he gives himself another year, he's going to do himself a lot of good, because I think he's about to bust at the seams.
Yeah, I agree. And good. That's a great question, and kind of a good segue that Matt just asked, asking, have we heard anything on Dillon Gabriel? Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what Mims is waiting on. I think that's a good call. And let's just talk about that, what we kind of spoke about last night. It appears that maybe, right now, as of now, Dillon has not made a decision. And it looks like I think that Oklahoma is not really wasting a lot of time as far as making plans in case he doesn't come back. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing on that as far as that goes, Chris? I'll just let you go ahead with it.
So, there's a wild rumor out there, and I'll just put it like this. There's a wild rumor out there about a certain quarterback on the West Coast. Let's just put it like that, Pac-12. All right.
Uh-huh.
And I'll just leave it at that. That could be pretty much your guy if something were to happen. But it's a faint rumor. But I've seen wilder things happen. Hell, like I said, I'll go back to it. I saw Lincoln Riley leave last year while I was eating my bowl of Chipotle, and it dropped on the ground. I think that was
yeah. The night after he said he's not going to LSU, then the next morning you find out he hauled ass to the beach. Yeah,
but no, I mean, I've seen wilder things happen, but I don't know. To me, like I've said it a bunch of times. One of the really interesting things, and somebody in the comments, they may keep up with this more, but if Gabriel is to leave, you got to go and look at a guy like Sam Hartman. Mm-hmm. Got to. You got it. I mean, hey,
that's the first thing he said earlier. He goes, "Don't you even start with that Sam Hartman crap."
but here's why I think that Sam Hartman makes sense for OU, because Levy's offense is a lot of different things, but it's RPO based too, right? Right. Sam Hartman, I feel like, would be able to translate well to that simply because he played in that Wake Forest system, mesh route system, which is basically just a seriously delayed RPO, in my opinion. Because you don't know what's going to happen with that. But basically, I think that he would translate well to that. I think that's a guy that you would have to go and say, hey, look, I know you want to go to Notre Dame or whatever the case may be, but give us a look. But outside of that, like I said, I'll just leave it there. I mean, that's the wild rumor. A USC, I mean, not USC guy, but a West Coast guy, Pac-12 guy that.
And if the guy that we're talking about that you had said yesterday, I got to tell you, I can see that, and hey man, I would welcome it even if you're not. And that's if, of course, you're not going to bring Dillon back. If for whatever reason Dillon decides that he would be better off somewhere else, which I don't understand that part. That's where, to me, if you're Dillon, I don't see what it is that you think that you're going to get anywhere else, whether it be NIL money or anything else. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine anybody paying you better or you being in a better situation than what you're going to be in year two with a coach that you know well. He recruited you at UCF. You played for him there. Now you've played for him here, and you get another year with them with upgraded talent. All over and I mean, good grief, start thinking about the backfield and start thinking about some of these receivers that you got coming in. If you get Marvin back, I can't even imagine a better situation for you if you're Dillon Gabriel. But,
well,
go ahead.
I'm telling you, guys, we're just, we're 4 days away from the portal being done. And the longer this goes, I don't see Gabriel going anywhere. I think the longer I would think if he was going somewhere, he would have already pulled the trigger on that.
Yeah.
It seems like he would have too.
Yeah, the overwhelming the consensus is that he's coming back, but there's always that thought that he
sure.
Well, and as an Oklahoma fan, everybody's gun shy after what happened this past season. You know what I mean? When you start thinking about you lost 2 5-star quarterbacks and everything, I mean, you don't want to screw around and wait and, and see what happens. And then all of a sudden you don't end up with anybody. I think that more people would say that they were very lucky to have a guy like Gabriel even still be around. Now, I would tell you that, this is something I had heard from JP and Trav one time that they were talking about, that they didn't think that they handled the situation with the quarterbacks very well by just giving it to Gabriel, saying he's going to be the starter, because that you didn't even allow for other people that might be able to come in and compete, which would have given depth to the room, which I really wish they would have done that as well. That was something that I always thought. There's definitely going to be, I think there's definitely going to be a quarterback competition next season. Mm-hmm. Who is in that competition is still up for grabs. But, Jackson Arnold, I feel like he's probably going to be, I think by the end of the year, he's probably going to be the starter. That's just my thoughts on it. And that could be part of the reason why you're seeing why you're seeing Dillon waffle on whether he's going to come back or not. Because maybe, although it seems to me like a competitor doesn't care.
Exactly. That's what I was just fixing to say. If that's what's scaring him, you don't want him back. You want somebody that's going to compete for the position, because no matter what, that's going to make OU better. That competition, if you can get kids to compete at every position, and not just have somebody say, "Oh, they're just locked in here." No, if you can get them to compete, you're going to be a better football team at every position.
And I don't think that Jackson's been coming, or at least publicly, he hasn't come in and said, "I want to be the starter day one." He hasn't. In fact, he's said the opposite of that, of "I'm happy to work and learn from Dillon Gabriel." I think they have a good relationship from everything that I've heard. I feel like that's to me, man, he's a Hawaiian kid. Those kids ain't scared of nothing when it comes to that kind of stuff. DG, I don't see it. I do not see him being afraid of that.
I'll bet. I'm going to bet you both a Dr. Pepper Zero that he does not leave.
Okay, I'm not. Yeah. I don't feel like he's probably going anywhere either. I just don't see it. But again, that's a thought, and obviously, the closer that you get down to Sunday, I mean, you would think that that's probably the case. Is that we're probably at the point now where you're looking at he's got to be coming back. I can't imagine anywhere else that he would even. I just still don't even. I can't even consider the situation that would be a better situation than what he's got if he comes back to OU. So we'll move on from that, guys.
Go to Notre Dame.
I'm sure. Hey, listen, I bet you guys would take him, wouldn't you?
Oh, we'd snatch him up in a New York second.
I can't blame you, man. I can't blame you. What did they? How many games did they get over 200 yards or last season from the quarterback position passing? It wasn't much.
Let's not even talk about that. I'll puke.
And then as far as but obviously, hey, one of the things that I saw the other day, and this was something that I hadn't really had a chance to bring up yet, but Isaiah Coe coming back, we were talking about that defensive line position. That was probably your most consistent guy along the defensive line this season. So that's a good sign for Oklahoma, I think.
He has a chance to really play himself into at least a day two guy somewhere around that. He has a chance to really play himself into that role. He's got the body type, he's got the frame, he's got the want to. It's just all about putting it together on the field and having that production this year. Because I think highly of Coe.
Yeah, I do too, and I like him a lot. Again, just with what you're looking at and everything else, I mean, if you start putting together the class that they've got so far with early signing day, some of the options with the later one, and some of these possibilities that are in the portal, I saw some questions in there about Clemson guys. I know there's been some rumors here and there. I have not heard anything concrete about any of the guys from Clemson so far, which surprises me. It really surprises me, but I have not heard anything concrete about anything. The one guy that they were talking about, he's going to the draft. Yeah. So, I would guess that the guy from A&M, talking about A&M, that would be a big move for them. I guess Sears, to me, I'm hoping that they're really making a push for Bothroyd from Wake.
One of the guys that you also got to look at too, and I'm gonna go to the offensive side, but you got to be looking at that tackle from Stanford.
We were talking about him earlier. Yeah,
Jacob Sexton going down and whatnot. You got to figure out what you're gonna do at left tackle, and I think Guyton is a guy who can do exactly what he needs to do on that right side. But you just got to build depth, which to be honest with you, if I'm comfortable with anybody on the team as far as just coaching staff wise, it's definitely Beaton Bo. I think Beaton Bo knows exactly what he's gonna he knows exactly what to do on an offensive line as far as putting guys out there. And I mean, in Florida State,
it's been the most consistent group on the team for 10 years. Easy.
In that Florida State game, I mean, we played a lot of young guys, but we also finally got to see Savion Byrd out there. And I think, I think with a year under his belt and with just as the season progresses, he's going to get really, really good.
I think so too, man. And that's what Coach was talking about that again. I told you guys I'd gotten so sick during that time, and I didn't really watch the game. I had to watch highlights of it, but when I woke up, I know Coach was talking about that he was impressed, and it's hard for him to get too up about any Oklahoma team, but you were happy about what you saw from them as far as the way that they played. I know that, Coach. So
yeah,
do we got to get you out of here, Chris?
Yeah, I got to jump off real quick, guys. I appreciate y'all for letting me come on. Definitely, this is not going to be the last time for sure.
No, not at all.
Collab and everything. So.
Well, we appreciate you coming on too, and enjoy the one over there. Look, I will talk to you after I get back from San Antonio here. I'm going to be down there for the All-American game and stuff, so we'll talk to you whenever we get back.
All right, guys. I'll holler at you. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one. Yeah, and Jimmy, as he was talking about, I agree with that. That's one of the things that you're going to see a lot. I feel like you're going to see a lot of big things coming from that. And the offensive line has not been the issue. That's probably been the most consistent part of Oklahoma's team. Has been on that O-line for probably 10 years. So I agree with that part. Something else, and I don't know if you saw this at all, Coach. Texas A&M, for the school that is all about, how do I want to put this? Well, they're all about just a good, feel good program, and just the way that you do things. It's such a perfect thing to do. They brought in for offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino today.
Yeah, I laugh. That's and I tell you what, here's the thing. They're searching over there, and Bobby Petrino is definitely not the answer.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, for a team that they're looking for some kind of, what is the word we're looking for here? If you're looking for to have the right mix of people it just dry. I can't even believe it. It was like, I was like, wow, you just took a dumpster fire and threw a gas can on top of it.
Yes.
Wow.
But you know what? Golly, I can't say that breaks my heart.
Oh no, no! Don't get me wrong. I don't care. I think it could be very entertaining by the time it's all said and done.
No, I love it. I think it's, I'm not an A&M guy myself, and it's from their head coach all the way through the program, and like you said, they're gonna again with Bobby, the culture's gonna change, but I'm not sure it's gonna change in the right direction.
Kirk, you'd love to come on and disagree with what? Speak. Go ahead. You know what? I'll send you a freaking link if you want to talk about this. Look, I get it that there's a reason, but when you have, okay, well, okay. I'll tell you what. You want me to send you a link? Because I'd love to hear this. Because I got to tell you, again, Kirk being a guy that's played college football, I'll give you something on that. Bobby is a great play caller. I'm not saying that he isn't, and that's probably the biggest issue. If I could think about, if I was thinking about here, Kirk, I'm going to send you a link then real quick. If I'm thinking about where you're going with this, it's the fact that right now Jimbo's a mess when it comes to play calling. I still wouldn't tell you that I think that's a great idea. But hold
Well,
on.
and that's part of my reasoning in there too, is because I don't think I don't think him and Jimbo are going to be a good mix together. I'm not saying Petrino's a bad coach, and you heard me say culture, and I think those two are going to butt heads more than we might think.
Yeah, and just because of the fact that you don't really see Kirk, I went ahead and threw that into your messenger. So if you want to jump on, go ahead and do that. You can just use your phone. So just open that up and I'll let you in. But yeah, and the thing is like is whether or not can you get Jimbo to let go of that playbook?
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think you could have brought anybody into the mix, and you're still going to struggle because of Jimbo.
Right.
I'd rather have Bobby Petrino as the head coach than Jim Fisher.
Yeah, listen. I mean, when it comes to everything, here he comes. Okay. Kirkster, welcome to the show, bud. Been a while since I've seen you, but hey, welcome to the show. And I want to hear this part. So again, folks, everybody, this is Kirk Robbins. He is a former Division I receiver, so offensive guy. He was for Artesia. He was one of the best receivers of all time to come out of Artesia. So talk to us about what you're thinking here.
Coach Robal, nice to meet you.
Hey, what's up?
First of all, I live in Arkansas and I have for 17 years. So I followed the career of Bobby Petrino closely. I'm also an offensive guy, like coming from Artesia,
Not.
Yeah, how could you not be an offensive guy? And I'm always intrigued by people who, I've said it before, do more with less.
Sure.
And Bobby Petrino has always done that. Wherever he's gone offensively, he's made an immediate impact. So whatever offense he's running, it has to be pretty simple, and he can use whatever people to move the ball down the field with whoever. Arkansas played his Missouri State team this year, and they moved the ball at will against our defense. And our defense was salty this year. We had a great game against Alabama. We had a great game against most people we played when our whole D was healthy at Arkansas. And he had a very successful game. He did it at Western Kentucky.
He's definitely reinvented himself more than once. For everything that's happened in his career that's allowed him to have these setbacks, because there's been plenty of those.
I think his offensive scheme is pretty simple for kids to learn. It's simple to translate to quarterbacks. And so for whatever reason, he could go anywhere. And I think that A&M is struggling so much. Jimbo Fisher at this point has zero choice but to allow him to just step in and call the plays. Like, I think they've already said that, like, day one with the hire, he's not calling the plays anymore.
Well, I think so too, but except for the fact that what does he have to let go of anything? They owe him all that money. He doesn't have to do shit,
And that was my point with Petrino coming in. I still don't think Jimbo is going to let go. And I think that's where the struggles are going to be. And I'm probably going to be 100% wrong, but Jimbo Fisher doesn't let go.
He hadn't done it yet,
The difference is like Jimbo Fisher hasn't done much offensively in the SEC.
Exactly.
And Bobby Petrino already, like, when he was here, we were crushing it. Like, we sucked on defense, but man, we can move the ball with anybody. I think he'll do fine there. I think it was a gutsy hire. Yes, was it a last-ditch effort? But, like, I don't know what other better offensive-minded person was out there to grab. I think they were looking at the other
as far
Riley,
as guys that are.
I think they were looking at the Riley at TCU, Lincoln's brother. But
sure,
this is like a sure bet. He's going to go there, and if you just allow him to run the offense, like, he's done it. If you look at his last 10 jobs, it's like, oh, has he ever failed on offense? Like, it's a safe bet for me.
Right.
And I get what you're saying. I guess my feeling on the whole thing, it's not necessarily that I know he knows how to call offense. That's obvious. He even did it. He did a good job for the short amount of time that he was in Atlanta. It was okay there too. But what I would say is that, the reluctance that Jimbo's had to give up any kind of play calling, is he going to get completely out of the way? Because the truth of it is, he doesn't have a lot of incentive to do so. They owe him $85 million or $89 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He could easily say, you know what, you can.
Fire.
Oh man, me too. And it does have the ability to turn into to a real explosion, because of the fact, if, I could see Petrino being the type of guy that would speak up if Jimbo was not allowing him to do his job. So it could get real ugly,
Yes, I mean, so I see this comment down here. The Hogs defense was terrible. The Hogs defense, when everybody was healthy, was formidable for the SEC. If we were in the Big 12 or some other conference, like, we had a salty defense when everybody was out there. Like, yes, like when they
they had an All-American linebacker. There was
when people were hurt, we sucked booty chatta. Like, it was awful.
And you're right. And the thing is, though, but they went from really good to the start of the year. I mean, think about
top
it.
10.
When they lost that game on that weird deal, the game against A&M. I mean, that was kind of the turning point for them at that moment. But then they got a lot of injuries, and that's how, college football can be that way, particularly in the SEC. You can go from winning the whole thing to nothing real quick. So, I do think that I appreciate your definitely your opinion on it. And I'm not even saying that I necessarily completely disagree. I just have a hard time believing that Jimbo will give it up because of the fact that he hasn't yet. And that, does he have any kind of incentive to do so when you owe him $90 million? I mean, if he decides, hey, screw you, I don't have to change
games. His incentive needs to be, if he'll let him do it, he can win some more ball games.
Sure. The other thing we're not considering is, yes, they owe him a ton of money, but is there some billionaire saying you're going to let somebody call the plays? Like, that's a real thing too, is like, we owe this person a ton of money, but like, he's in somewhat of control. But I mean, somebody could be telling him like, hey, like, you're going to have to allow this, otherwise this is going to go bad south. Like, it could be a compromise at some point too.
Yeah, well, and I know that this has been something that, I think that they first visited about this about 3 months ago. This isn't really new. I think obviously the hire was new. So it wasn't something that just came, out of nowhere. They talked about it before. So is it overly surprising? Somewhat, but then I guess the more we talk about it and the more I'm sitting here thinking about it, what else do you got to lose? I mean, at this point, when, you went 5-7 this season, and it could have been a lot worse. In fact, it should have been worse. But, the Miami game they should have lost. They definitely should have lost the Arkansas game. They already did lose. I mean, it was, oh, man. And they started off number 6 at that. So, I don't know. Surprisingly, though, they somehow flipped it around and got another amazing recruiting class. It wasn't as good as it.
The problem is when you get all these good recruiting classes, just like OU this last year, like even with the new coach, the kids are so young, you get so few upperclassmen that when things go bad quick, you got a lot of immaturity, and it turns real quick. So it's easy to see why somebody with a bunch of top 25 classes can turn real fast, because the I don't give a crap really kicks in real quick with kids in the maturity level.
No doubt. And especially in this day and time with all the NIL stuff and the ability to leave whenever you want, but man, it's a different world that we're living in right now than what it was, even just a few years ago.
I love parts of it. I don't love bowl season anymore. It's not as fun, but I mean, some of it I'm cool with, some of it I don't love, but
y'all may disagree with me, but until we get into maybe a 12-team deal, and then I think excitement will pick back up. But right now, guys, bowl season. I'm not sure that I watched half of the games this year. And I used to have 3 TVs set up and watching all the games, and now I can barely get myself to turn the TV on.
I know it's hard to watch a lot of them, and particularly when you start having a bunch of opt-outs and things like that, where you're not getting the whole team even together. And even like Oklahoma, they had a bunch of guys that were missing. It was good to see some guys that you're going to get something out of next year, that you hope you're going to get something out of next season. But, like the running back tandem and everything else. But that being said, there's a lot more to it. Yeah, the bowl season's not near what it used to be. Nobody cares, which is why it was weird to me when the Rose Bowl was kind of holding up that whole deal on the playoff over the Rose Bowl. And it's like, bro, nobody cares about it now. What are we even talking about?
Yeah, and I don't even care. Like,
what are they going to care about it at once it's a 12-team playoff? They're really not going to care about it.
Yeah, and it used to matter, like when Tulane would upset USC, but now it's like, I mean, we all could have said like, yeah, like.
Oh, I think that it's not that big of an upset. You know what I mean? It's as much as, other than the fact that it's Tulane.
Hey, it was at stadium, boys.
Yeah.
True.
So NIL and portal are going to ruin the game. So like, I want to give you perspective though a little bit, just from somebody who played. Like, there is some points of ruining the game, but there are some things that are definitely wrong with transfer rules and other things like that for players that absolutely.
I think that's
suck.
The problem.
And so like Jen, I went to New Mexico. When I went to New Mexico, they were a top 25 program. They threw the heck out of the ball, and my coach left in my first year. And then I got a coach who came in and ran the veer, and that I was a receiver, and that wasn't cool, and I didn't want to be there anymore. That wasn't fun for me. So so there needs to be some happy medium. I don't care about making money, but I do need. I would have preferred to go walk on at Texas Tech when Mike Leach got hired, because he was throwing the heck out of the ball. I mean, he was
killing it. Loved you. Good.
Yeah, grief. I mean, they were killing it. They had a bunch of random people playing wide receiver. Like, so I mean, there's two sides to all of it. They need to make it easier for players to move. When you got when you got Urban Meyer going from all these schools, when he did it, he went from Bowling Green to Utah to Florida. Well, heck, man, I want to go from Utah to Florida to run that offense. Like, like Alex Smith would have been great at Florida. Like,
oh man, could you imagine? I mean, really, they
so like, I mean, there needs to be something to make it easier for me in college to say, you know what, like, I had a dream and I shouldn't just have to give that up now because somebody wants to come run the veer. So
I don't have a problem necessarily with that. I think that the problem is that when you start having a guy like JT Daniels, this will be his fourth school in 4 years, and he started at all of them. And so when it gets to the point where it's supposed to be one time free, and that's really not what's happening. But the truth of it is right now the NCAA has no teeth. Used to they had all the teeth. They don't have anything.
It's a multi-billion like, it's so big they could govern this. It's so humongous. They could absolutely see all this on a case-by-case basis. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like JT Daniels. Like, sorry, dude, you've been in 4 spread offenses. Get your degree and shovel on and go sell insurance. Like,
exactly. And
right. Go coach. Do whatever you're gonna do. Yeah.
Yes.
But there's got to be some parameters, guys. And right now we don't have any parameters. And if they'll get those in place, and I tell you another problem I have, and you guys know this is going on. You got coaches from other teams calling players, hey, come to our place. I mean, and again, that goes back to having those parameters to where those kinds of things aren't going to creep into this mess. Because I agree with you, like you said, you went to New Mexico, your coach left, now you're running the friggin' beer, and you're throwing it twice a game. You ought to have the opportunity. You ought to have the opportunity to go and follow your dream. And so part of this is really good. But at the end of the day, we just got to fine tune it and get some rules in here.
Well, let me ask you this, guys, and this is something that with the way that things are going, as far as all this money that has been infused into the game with the playoff and all that, and you've got Fox and ESPN that are dumping huge amounts of money into the Big Ten and the SEC, namely. But even with ESPN in the Big 12, it bumped up its cash a little bit, even with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. Now, I would argue that that's with inflation. It did not, but let's just say this. If I'm Fox and ESPN, I'm telling these commissioners to get your house in order, because damn it, when you had 40% of the players that went into the portal a year ago that didn't land anywhere, they didn't go back to their original schools, and all of a sudden they're just not playing anymore. This is an unsustainable way of going, or at least you are going to really hurt the product quite a bit. And if you are paying, $10 billion freaking dollars for the television rights for that, if I'm Fox and ESPN, I want you to find a way to incentivize these kids hanging around. Because otherwise, and you don't tell me you can't do it. That was something that I saw Josh Pate talking about, that saying, hey, 25,000 if you hang around for the second season, goes up to 40 or 50,000 on the third. And then if you stay your entire 4 years, then, you can get another $100,000 or whatever. To a lot of players, that would incentivize keeping you around, and maybe it would kind of settle some of this down. But it's not just a matter of, say, the NCAA stepping in and doing something about it. This is something that these universities and these conferences have to get in order, in my opinion.
Well, and let me ask y'all this. I'm just curious about this. Do y'all believe that there ought to be a limit where everybody's on the same plane and this is all you can spend? Because, look at Oregon. Oregon has bukus of money running.
Texas A&M, same thing.
We can name a ton of them, but is it truly? We're not. It's not on a level playing field.
No.
So does it need to be that way?
Has it ever been on a level playing field though? No.
But
it's not on a level playing field. But like, what I will say is this: is like, there used to be times occasionally when there would be a mix-up in power or things like that. Like, you never went through a period of time when the SEC was this dominant. USC
True.
used to be really good. Notre Dame used to be really good. Utah went up when BCS started and spanked the hell out of Alabama. Like, There used to be time when good coaches in the right period of something mattered. Like it really did. When
the Big 12 started moving, when you started
now
getting,
it's like the collection is getting a little tighter, and it's a little bit more noticeable. The one thing is I don't think anybody's disclosed, or like, I've never seen an article on ESPN or anything about like, here's the breakdown of NIL money by kid, or like, there's been no great report or data.
They don't really have to do it. That's why.
And until we get that, like, it feels weird. Like, it really, really does. But at the end of the day, you still have young kids and immaturity, and you're still going to have A&M happen. But I do think there needs to be some guardrails.
Right. I hate
if not, you're paying almost like if not, you're paying like a luxury tax that goes into like a pot for the UNMs and the Air Forces of the world or whatever that can't do that. Like, so if you're going to be a Texas A&M, if they want to go above it, that's great. They're paying a luxury tax, and just like baseball. And then
and that's where I feel like they kind of screwed up, where they're trying to say, okay, it can't be a part of your enticements to get somebody to come to school, rather than saying, okay, no, go ahead and do that. That way we can regulate it. Because if you are using that if you're saying, okay, yeah, you can do that. And that's all Saban and those guys that are screaming about that and wanted that to be a part of the rules. First off, the rules getting broken anyway. It doesn't matter. That's the rule, is that you can't use it as an enticement, but they do. So that being said, but because of the fact that it is now it's a rule that's being broken, then you're not going to have the real numbers, other than unless you just get some university leaking it or some guy here or there leaking it. So if you really want to get a handle on it, you might as well just go ahead and say, hey, just pay them. It's pay for play. Let them do it. Go ahead and do that. And then you can start worrying and looking at, okay, yeah, we can do. That's when you can say, yeah, go ahead and let's put a cap on it. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and put a salary cap.
I'd be real interested to see kind of what happened, like, from a financial perspective at USC, because like, you don't be that crappy, and we get all these people, like, how much money was forked over for that to be relevant?
Right.
I'm sure that, like, we'll never know, or maybe we will in a Netflix documentary 5 years from now, but like, it's something significantly happened other than just Lincoln Riley going there.
It was right. And just like the A&M deal, where you've got Jimbo beating on the table and standing on it screaming, we did not pay $30 million. Everybody knows you paid $30 million, bro. You don't have to lie even. What are we talking about? The Bro Bible's a real thing. It's been around for a long time. those are real reporters from real publications. They just have that as a way to, like, that's their diary, you might say. You know what I mean? That they're not. It's their way to like report on some stuff that isn't going to get them fired, or or run out of town with pitchforks. You know what I mean? It's you just never know. But the truth of it is, it's a real thing. The Bro Bible is real, and it's real reporting, and it's stuff that you wouldn't hear otherwise, because otherwise nobody's going to stick their name to that report. They're just not going to do it. It'd get them hurt. But that being said, we know damn good and well that's what, I mean, Saban knew it. He threw him right under the bus. I mean, not that he wasn't doing the same thing. Again, to me, if as long as they're private contracts, just like what James just said in there, as long as they're a private contractor, but a contract between the person that's paying the NIL, or the company that's paying for this endorser, or whatever you want to call it, they don't have to disclose that. If it becomes okay, hey, we're going to enter this in as part of the school or whatever, then of course you would have some way to at least kind of control some of it. Otherwise, I don't really see what else you can do aside from you're going to have to incentivize these kids to stay. And in order to do that, that's going to take money and some of these other things as well. And I think that obviously things are going to have to evolve, and they will evolve on their own. But the more this goes on, the less I love it. I'm not a huge fan of the whole thing. I like them getting paid. I think it's great that they needed to get paid. I like the ability, as for the reason of what you said. I agree with you. You could have had imagine the career that you might have had at Texas Tech, Kirk. With your speed and being able to catch the ball the way that you did, you might have ended up in the NFL. You know what I mean?
It is what it is. It's funny that that Hawaii and I said before they were getting paid, they stayed because of school and the game. I will say this, that when I graduated, I was the only person that came in my class that graduated on time. So a lot of them still went and didn't graduate on time. So
right.
I would say football players generally, other than maybe basketball players, men's basketball teams are the lowest graduating rates in classes of most colleges. I mean, I don't know if Coach would agree, but I mean, a lot of players weren't going and graduating on time anyway, in general, and a lot of them weren't staying there probably any longer than they are now. I don't think that affects them staying in college.
No, I think if you're going to go and you're going to be one of those guys that's going to graduate, you're going to be that guy anyway. So, whether or not, and the truth of it is the way that things are now, it actually makes it easier for you to be able to transfer if you have a degree and have, eligibility.
It's funny. Else. Somebody said, I wonder what Rep Bomar and JD are thinking now. Look at the Houston Texans backup quarterback. He came from a good system. They knew he was a good quarterback. He didn't transfer, but they thought, man, this kid is great. He's not a great NFL quarterback, but there were a lot of USC quarterbacks, the guy that played for the Chiefs and the Patriots that never saw the field for USC.
Oh yeah. Oh man, shoot. If you hadn't said his name, if you hadn't brought him up, I would remember.
Was it Matt or something like that?
Matt.
I forgot his name, but
Castle.
There were still people that made it very successful as backups in the NFL, that never even saw the field that much in college.
Well, look at Landry. I mean, if Landry hadn't gotten stuck behind Ben Roethlisberger, he probably gets, once you get to that point where, with Ben, he played so much that even
Matt
he never
Castle,
got a real opportunity. That's why I said Matt Castle. Yeah. So if you're looking at a guy like a Landry Jones, Landry was just good enough to get out of here because he's going to cost you too much to be a backup. If after that, when the way that the money slots, I think you're seeing the same thing with Mason Rudolph. Probably isn't going to play anymore now. You know what I mean? He hasn't done anything of significance. Whether he's a good enough backup quarterback, I don't really think he is. So, it's one of those deals where you can kind of miss your window that easy when it comes to the league. So, anyway. All right. Anything else, guys? Let's see. What were we? Oh, shoot. Yeah, we talked about, obviously. Cliff Kingsbury is apparently losing his job with the Cardinals as well. Not can't say that I'm shocked with that either.
When did that come across? Just now or something?
It came across in the last hour or two. Yeah, it had just popped up. He's definitely on his way out the door. I was surprised.
When you pay Kyler Murray, it's going to be one or the other. And the sad thing is, Cliff may be a good coach, but Kyler went in there and said, "Yeah, it's one of those things that."
The thing about it, the weird thing with me was that they re-upped Cliff last year before they did the deal for Kyler, and then
But then Kyler became much more of a diva.
Threw him under
in the last 12 months. He became a diva overnight. Like he
did. Well, the whole video game thing, and then him they're saying that he doesn't watch film and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that was what a great organization that Cardinals program is, aren't they? Just sit over there and you're gonna, right as you paid the guy freaking $200 million, you let that leak about him. What in the hell?
Man, Baker didn't become a diva, Jen. He just got some bad coaching. He's on his 8th coach in 4 years. Like, let the kid sit at the Rams as a backup, and he'll go somewhere and start. Like, he's not.
You watch.
I think he probably gets a bad rap.
Yes, he gets a bad rap. The best thing you're not going to get any arguments here from this group. Believe me, we're all Baker lovers. They needed the thing about Baker. He finally got in a situation with a coach that is going to not try to fit that square peg round hole type of deal. And I think that that's the problem with especially offensive coaches. They get this in love with their system so much that they're going to make you fit their system rather than fit their system around you. And I think the best coaches are the guys like a McVay or like Kyle Shanahan that are going to, say, hey, we're going to make it work for you. What are your strengths? And Baker's strengths are not sticking him in the pocket and freaking getting him beat to death like you did at Cleveland. And then it was a complete dumpster fire in Carolina too. So it's not like it was a whole, I don't know. Baker might end up with the Jets. Why?
Hey, Jay,
I'm a Cliff Kingsbury fan. I like him. Like, I think he's a smart, good coach. Like, they hired him for a reason. I think, he would go somewhere else and do fine. It's maybe a bad situation. He's going to land on his feet somewhere, whether it's college or NFL, or, he could be the youngest retired 44-year-old. He's the same age as I am. He's fine.
I'm not as big of a Cliffy fan. I'm not as big of a Cliff fan, but I'm not as big of a Cliff fan. But Coach, you saying you're going to get?
Yeah, I got to get going, guys. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night. Enjoyed all the perspectives. And,
appreciate it, Coach. We'll talk to you whenever we get back, and I'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Y'all have a good one.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
All right. So, as far as Cliff goes, I've never been I thought that he was pretty overrated at Tech. And I think that the way that he handled the whole Baker Mayfield situation while he was at Tech was kind of the start of that. And then, when you don't win with him or Patrick Mahomes, and the Big 12 wasn't great at that time. He didn't win ever more than like 7 games.
Yeah, I'm a Tech fan. Like, that was a team when I was a little high school kid in Artesia. Like, I was a Tech fan. So, like, I'm still, that's my.
Listen, I was covering at that time whenever Mike Leach was there. And so
my lifelong NFL team is the Chiefs. And so when they pulled the trigger on Pat Mahomes out of college, I was like,
yeah. But that kind of tells you the difference in, like, well, and of course, obviously Andy Reid, doing a great job with it. But to me, you can't, it seems like it should have been easier to win with Pat Mahomes at Tech, than it is to win in the
Tech.
NFL.
It's still love Texas.
It is still Tech. It is still Tech.
It's like an ugly man's Norman. It's like, it's like.
This is a fair statement.
Yeah.
This is a fair statement. I know. Yeah.
It's if all vegetation and trees left Norman, it would just look like Lubbock.
Yeah, listen, and I think that I think that if you put him in a situation where he's an offensive coordinator, I think that he excels. I just don't know that he's a great head coach.
Maybe a good college coach with a good staff. He'd be a great NFL offensive coach with maybe he gets back,
Yeah, so the rumor that you're talking about Levy, there was a rumor. It wasn't even really a rumor. From what I understand, Coach Saban was offered him the position to be offensive coordinator, because they're going to definitely be getting rid of their OC here. In fact, he's probably already out the door. He turned it down. It looks as if he will be. I mean, he wants to see this through with Jackson Arnold and Oklahoma and see kind of how this goes. I think that there was some stipulations, it sounded like to me, about whether or not Venables maybe allowed him to be a bit more aggressive, I should say. But aside from that, I think that he's all in with OU, and it looks like you're going to keep Lebby around. I'm a Lebby fan, so I'm not one of those. I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people from Oklahoma are not. They're used to seeing what we've seen from Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and those guys. They still had a top 20 offense, and it was a new offense. It's not the same thing that Lincoln runs by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that it only gets better from here. So I'm grateful. I'm happy that he did. I don't want to see a really good offensive mind go to Alabama. Although from what I'm hearing now, it may be Garrett Riley going to Alabama. So that may not be a good
That'd
thing.
be a good fit.
Oh, that could be tough, man, for the rest of the country.
Be a good fit for Alabama.
It could be. It could be. I mean, when you start thinking about some of these guys that are offensive minded and I mean, look, man, the one thing you can't say about Lincoln is that he doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to offenses and quarterbacks and stuff like that. And because he does, and his brother does the same thing. So, it is what it is. But folks, we have been going for a good hour and a half now. I think we are going to go ahead and call it at that. Hey, thanks for jumping on the show with me there, Kirk.
Oh, yeah, man. Every so often, if it's right in between practices or something, I'm like, it's live. I subscribe, then I'll pop on.
Yeah, hey man, yeah, anytime, man, and we'll talk again. Maybe we can get you back on here more throughout the year.
For sure.
And see how it goes. We appreciate it. Hey guys, thanks a lot again. Hey, I don't know where I'm at as far as my subscribers are concerned. In fact, I can take a look because I'm kind of curious. We are 5 away.